Have you ever wondered what in the world it takes for teams to just gel together, for teams to just keep striving, even in the midst of adversity? You want to know one of the core reasons is because they don't let their differences get in the way. Hello, everyone. My name is Hennither Gant. I'm the founder and CEO of Career Image Solutions, where we are dedicated to all things hiring and HR, whether it's a working professional looking to advance in their career or companies looking to hire, retain, or develop their team members. We are typically the globe's favorite hiring team. So, with that being said, I want to go ahead and share with you all some nuggets, some best practices with over 15 plus years of experience in human resources and specializing in areas like employee relations, diversity, equity, and inclusion, training and development, compensation, you name it, I've been at the table to discuss it. So one of the things, obviously, as you've heard, is that one of the things I can specialize in is diversity. So today I want to talk to you about diversity, how to ensure differences don't get in the way, right? Especially if you are on a team or managing and or leading a team. It's super important that we recognize that differences are there to make us stronger. If we wanted to define diversity, I'm here in the United States. We know diversity means something different even in the United States, but there are clients that we work with around the globe. Diversity means something completely different to those in other countries. The first thing I want you to know is that diversity can mean something different depending on who you're talking to. It's essentially the things that make us different, right? Not just what you see, not just your race, not just your ethnicity, not just your gender, but I mean, our recreational habits, right? Our upbringing, our communication style, you name it. All of those things are that make up who we are is what is defined as diversity, okay? So I just wanted to go ahead and preface that first. So there are a few tips that I want to give you today that will ensure that the differences within your team do not get in the way. Are you ready? Are you ready? All right. So one of the first things I want to just share with you is that you want to really focus in on what you have in common. Again, diversity kind of hones in on, oh, what makes us different? But the reality is that when you get to know somebody, what you will be surprised that you have more in common than you ever would have imagined if you just look beyond what you see, right? So when you want to identify what's in common, there's an activity that I love to use and when I'm working with different teams, and that's called the common ground activity. What I love to do is I break out people in groups, or maybe it's just the same group that I'm working with, and I tell them, you have 1 minute to come up with 10 things that you all have in common. And it is amazing. And of course, you have to tell people in advance, you cannot state the obvious, like we're all human, we all work for this company, right? Because you always have somebody who's going to try to do that. We all have ears, we all have noses. So you can't use any of those things. But really, it's such a great activity for you to stretch beyond what you normally would just say, oh, we're all we're all from the same ethnic background, right? It forces you to look beyond what you see. So finding common ground is very critical, especially if you are trying to ensure that differences don't get in the way. You also, when you're looking at what's in common, you want to make sure that you ask critical questions that go beyond the naked eye. You want to ask questions like, hey, what experiences led you to working in your career path? You want to ask questions that are just not nosy led, right? You know what I mean? Like, oh, how did you, questions like, oh, where are you from? Now that can be a good question, right? A good conversation starter. But does that really get to the core of who a person is? Sometimes yes, but most times no, right? What you really want to know is, tell me about what shaped your experience right? Tell me about how you perceive the working environment today. You want to ask questions to get to know the person, so that way you can find common ground. All right, common ground. So that's one of the first best practices. The second best practice that I want to share with you all is that it's, and this is something that not too many people want to do, and it's having critical conversations, okay? Having critical conversations. By doing this, you really get to the root of the differences, and it really forces you for those differences to not get in the way. Now, when you're having these critical conversations, you want to ask questions like, what is your preferred communication style, right? Because many times what happens is that there are differences within our teams, but there are some people that are afraid to have those critical conversations because we're afraid of how we're going to say it. We're afraid of how they're going to react. We don't want to hurt their feelings, ... You name it, right? Whatever the reason is, it's no excuse for you not to have that critical conversation, right? So I want to encourage you for you to be courageous in having those critical conversations. And because that boils down to communication style, right? When you have differences within your team, at the end of the day, it's how you all communicate. That's what gels teams together. So asking questions like your preferred communication style. Hey, you know what? Do you do better in person than you do in email? Would you prefer text? Would you prefer phone versus email? Because how many of you all have ever been in a predicament where you sent an email or received an email from someone and you had to read it like 3 or 4 times to really get what in the world are they saying? Or you might be thinking, is this person being rude? I can't tell. Does this exclamation mark mean that they are excited or that they are yelling at me, right? I know I'm not the only one that's been in that position before. It's the same thing with text. It's like, were they being nice about what they said? So again, by asking someone's preferred communication style allows you to have those critical conversations and ensure that the differences don't get in the way. If somebody's preferred communication style is email versus phone, right? You know, to make sure that you spend more time actually putting how you feel or what you're trying to communicate in email, because that person's preferred communication style is email. Vice versa, if you know someone's preferred communication style is in person, it's not just about catering to you, but when you are working with a team, you want to take into consideration your other team members' communication style. Okay. Another key point when you're having critical conversations is that you want to ask or let people know how things made you feel. We're talking about happiness in the workplace. Happiness is a feeling, right? So you want to make sure that if something happens, you are sharing. Hey, you know what? What you did, Hennither, made me feel like blah, blah, blah. You don't want to attack the person. You want to share that what they did, that action made you feel blank. It doesn't mean that they made you do something. It doesn't mean that they made you respond in a certain way, but you do want to have those critical conversations to ensure that if you are having differences, that you're sharing with that person, saying, hey, you know what? What you did made me feel X, Y, and Z. Hey, you know what? Sending me that text message about asking me about did I finish that project on time made me feel like you were micromanaging me, right? I would love to schedule a time to chat about this a little bit more, right? So again, having those critical conversations I've seen throughout my tenure in working is extremely critical, extremely critical. Another key thing that you can say to your team to have those critical conversations is, you know, what you did to someone else made me feel. Here's the bottom line. When you're working with teams, sometimes it's not about what somebody else did to you. The fact of the matter is that there are times where you will observe other people's behavior and it will impact you. Right? That's just the bottom line. So how someone treats someone else you might look at them differently, either in a positive way or in a negative way. Again, I want to encourage those of you who are intentional about happiness in a workplace, and who are intentional about not ensuring rather that differences don't get in the way. You want to ask those critical questions, and you want to share and let people know, hey, what you did to Hennither really made me feel this type of way. And let me share why that could be a problem in the future, right? Another thing that you could do to have those critical conversations is to get a mediator. Oh my goodness. So I'm a certified mediator, and I absolutely love it. I really feel like that's one of the things that one is my superpowers, right, is a mediation, because I truly do have an insight to be able to see two different sides of the spectrum and bringing people back in, right? So if you're having some difficulty in coming up with some common ground with another team member, which is preventing you from being happy in a workplace, you might want to see if you can get a third party, if you could get a mediator. And it doesn't have to be anybody certified. Maybe there's somebody within your sphere of influence that might be able to mediate those differences. So again, you all can come to common ground. Our whole goal, right, is to move beyond what makes us different, right? But to ensure that those differences do not get in the way. Differences are not a bad thing. It's actually a great thing, the fact that we all come unique and come bringing different perspectives to the table, right? Another thing to consider when you're having critical conversations is to consider doing it one-on-one versus publicly. We live in a society today where if somebody does something, especially with social media, we tend to just call them out. You know, we publicly go, can you believe what they did? We go to a restaurant, they treated us bad. We go online. Can you believe that what they did, right? What if we assumed positive intention? What if with our team members, when we're having these critical conversations, or we are posed with critical moments that makes us focus on differences, right? What if we assumed the highest thought? What if we had the highest thought about the situation? What I mean by that is, what if we didn't assume that the person was malicious in what they did? Could you imagine what impact that would have on how we communicated with that person? If someone does something to offend us, or we are offended by something that someone else did, usually your response is to defend, right? It's to go and go and attack it right away. But what would happen if we pause for a moment and to say, you know what, maybe they didn't mean it that way. Let me ask questions. Let me pull them in one-on-one. Let me not publicly share this amongst the entire team, right? Let me see where they were coming from before I assume. I can't tell you how many mediations I've done, or how many hiring officials I've coached, how many teams I've had to go and train, where this concept alone could have saved tons of headache if people just assumed the highest thoughts about the situation and or about their team member, and really brought it back in to have critical conversations one-on-one versus publicly, and letting the whole world know about what happened. Is this making sense? I hope so. All right. Have a few more tips for us, okay? So I want us to talk about intentionally connecting. Intentionally connecting, again, it's another best practice that you can utilize to ensure that differences don't get in the way. For many of us, we might be still working with our teams in a virtual environment. Even for those that are going to work in person, a lot of companies around the globe are still trying to implement some hybrid format, right? But whether you're in person, whether you're hybrid, whether you're completely remote, these tips for intentionally connecting are definitely ways that will ensure that differences don't get in the way, okay? So I'll just break that down a little bit more. So one of the things I wanted to bring up about intentionally connecting is by scheduling time to have, there's some people that call it connecting with coffee. You don't have to drink coffee. You get the concept, right? So imagine, if you want to meet somebody, say, oh, we should go and have tea. We should go and have coffee. Again, you don't have to have coffee or tea. I'm a tea drinker, just saying, I'm a tea drinker. If you ever want to take me out for tea. Okay. But it's really about intentionally connecting with others, right? To say, hey, I just want to check in with you, right? When you invite somebody for coffee, you invite somebody to tea, you know that it's about connecting. You know that it's not about work, right? You don't say, hey, let's connect over tea or coffee. And then you don't naturally just think that, oh, we are getting ready to go over work assignments, right? So intentionally connecting, and you could do this virtually, right? You can literally say, hey, let's both of us kind of just bring your coffee, tea, schedule maybe a Zoom, schedule a phone call, whatever that is, so we can find some time to connect. Another way to intentionally connect, especially for those of us that are working in larger teams or leading larger teams, there's something that I like to call listening sessions, okay? Listening sessions. Listening sessions are exactly what you think it could be, right? You go and you invite your team members so you can listen. So you can listen. It's not a time for you to go and provide solutions. Well, sometimes that does happen, but in most instances, it's a forum where you are inviting team members to maybe share the things that are going well, the things that are not going so well. And then there's usually one person or a few people on the other end that are just listening, trying to capture some common themes. So that way the team members can feel heard. And again, these are ways to intentionally connect. So again, the purpose of listening sessions is not for you to talk. It's for you to listen. And by designating a forum like that, where your team members can just share and feel heard, I'm telling you, it speaks volumes, and it really enforces and encourages you to move beyond differences, so those differences won't get in the way. Other tips to intentionally connect: do some random calls. I can't tell you how many companies, how many workplaces, they just focus on the doing and they forget about who they are becoming, who they are currently in that moment. So you want to just do some random calls. Now, I know you might be thinking like, hey, Hennither, listen, I don't want people randomly calling me. I have my day scheduled. I just don't like the random calls. Hopefully you know your team well enough, but sometimes you will be shocked where you could just do a random call and you'll say, hey, I was just thinking about you, just wanted to say hi. Everything okay? All right, talk to you later. Something really quick, really simple, just like that, allows you to intentionally connect, so that way you can move beyond on a deeper level, right? All of this really drives happiness, because connection is about getting to know who the person is, not just what they've done for you lately, right? Essentially, you want to deeply connect beyond the to-do list, okay? If you don't take away anything else about intentional connecting, you want to deeply connect beyond the to-do list. I hope this is making sense to you. All right. If it is, I would love to hear some feedback about any of these tips. Just have 2 more, so thanks for bearing with me, right? So to ensure that the differences don't get in the way, I want to introduce to you the concept of leaning in. Now, we may have heard of the concept of leaning in before, but I wanted to bring it in a different approach here, okay? Because in this particular scenario, I want to encourage you to see who is around you that connects well. I want you to lean in, right? To see who is in your sphere of influence that either lead teams well, or they are part of a team that gels well, that even despite their differences, despite where they come from, despite just different backgrounds, religious backgrounds, political backgrounds, they're still able to get things done. They're still able to gel. They're still able to connect. You want to lean into those people and ask for their feedback. You want to say, hey, you know what? I'm looking to be a more valued team member, right? Could you give me some tips on how you and your team may do this, right? What makes your team successful? Leaning into your sphere of influence to really determine who does it well is so powerful. So powerful, because the great thing is that you might be scratching your head, wondering, thinking, how can I ensure that my team is happy? How can I ensure that my team, continues to move the needle forward? And many times you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Many times you are just one person away from getting the thing that you need. So lean into your sphere of influence and don't feel like you have to do it alone, right? In leaning in, you also want to see what resources do you have. There's tons of resources at YouTube University. That's right. One of the best universities on the planet these days, right? But seriously, YouTube has a number of different trainings. I mean, and there's just so many resources in today's age. When you just look online, there's just so many different resources. And let me tell you what, especially in what is being considered as the Great Resignation in many parts of the globe, what you will find is that there are lots of resources from both ends, from those individuals that are leading teams and also from those that are part of teams. People are pretty vocal today about how they want to be treated and how they don't want to be treated, right? So I don't think that you will find any short list of resources. I think that you'll find a whole lot, all right? Last but not least, I want to talk to you about measuring your happiness. So far, we've talked about a number of things that you can do to ensure that differences don't get in the way, right? So before I talk to you about the very last best practice, I want to encourage you to do a recap, right? You want to look at what do you have in common? Look at what's in common, right? You also want to have critical conversations. You want to intentionally connect, and you want to lean in, right? So the last thing that I want to share is for you to measure your happiness. Your happiness is your birthright, okay? Nobody else can make you happy. I always like to say when I'm doing coaching, I always like to tell my clients, happiness is up to you. Your career is up to you. Yes, somebody else might hire you, but you determine your experiences. You get to create your experiences, and nobody is going to know that you are unhappy but you. So it's important that you measure your own happiness. Do not put your happiness in the hands of somebody else. Don't put your happiness at the stake of somebody else's decision making. You should be able to advocate and communicate for yourself to say, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, this is what makes me happy, and I need some coaching, right? So, but many times the reason why many people can't communicate these things is because they don't take self-assessments. They don't take time. I like to call it your work Sabbath, right? They don't take time to actually just rest from all of the doing, from checking the box off, right? I remember when I lived in Spain, I absolutely loved the concept of a siesta, right? Where everything just shut down. Now, I must admit, I didn't necessarily rest. I went and, did everything else, right? But it's something to consider, right? Actually intentionally putting time on your calendar to make sure that you're pausing for self-reflection, and not just to think about, what did I do today? But for you to do some assessments to say, what could I have done better? What are some things that I need? Who do I need to meet? Those types of questions really move you to the needle for you to really take your control back over your own happiness. Now, again, I get it. You might be saying to yourself, Hennither, I've done that, but I have so many thoughts in my head, I just can't even think about it, right? And if that is the case, I want to encourage you to hire a coach, right? And hire a coach, because sometimes it is a lot harder for us to keep ourselves accountable, but you have to be honest about where you are, which is my last point in measuring your happiness. You want to make sure that you are honest. Don't fluff yourself up saying, oh, I've got this, I know what makes me happy. If you haven't sat down in the last quarter, I like to do these on a quarterly basis to say, hey, what do I like? What don't I like? What do I need? Who do I need it from? Not just with your career, but looking at your whole self, because you're a whole person, not just a job title. Okay. So because of that, if you haven't done it in a while, I encourage you to do that. That's how you become happy in the workplace. And if you are happy, it just exudes to other people, and you will be shocked how your team members will also become happy. And if you are a leader leading other teams, I can't tell you how miserable it is for a leader to be showing up unhappy. Don't you know that it actually, filtrates to your team? So you want to take stock of where you are right now and being honest, so that way you can measure your own happiness. Listen, good people all around the world, I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank you for staying tuned to what I shared today regarding diversity, how to ensure differences don't get in the way. I hope that there was something that I said that was able to just encourage you and moving the needle forward for yourself individually, but also for your teams. If you want to connect with me a little bit more and to see what my team is doing at Career Image Solutions, I encourage you to find us on all social media outlets. Again, the name of our company is Career Image Solutions. Hashtag your favorite HR team. For those of you that are watching this conference live, I want to encourage you to go to bit.ly/CIS career, all caps. I'll say that one more time. bit.ly/CIS career. What happens is when you go to that link, it allows you to subscribe to our newsletter. Anyone that subscribes to our newsletter will get a complimentary 30-day rebranding career toolkit. We literally give you tips on how to rebrand your career day by day, but in 30 days. And we don't guarantee, but we're strongly telling you that most people that follow these tips literally not just advance with their career in terms of position title, but it just influences their confidence, right? So they're able to just show up differently because they're rebranding their career. If that's something that you're interested in, definitely go to bit.ly. Again, that's bit.ly/CIS career. Okay. Definitely check that out. If you want more information, again, about our services, maybe you're a working professional looking to maybe start something new or looking to advance, or maybe you're a company and you're like, hey, I'm hiring for the first time, or I already have a team. I just need to talk to someone about how to hire, how to retain, how to develop my team. If that's you, you want to go ahead and check us out by emailing us at services@career-image.com. And our website is career-image.com. Thank you all so much for watching. Continue to enjoy the rest of the conference. Have a good one, everyone.